I've got the 13 horror movies that you need to watch in January of 2025. What's up, cretins? What's up, creeps? My name is Chris. I'm the only person talking horror on the internet. From new releases to milestone anniversaries, from holiday celebrations to underseen exploitations, this is your calendar of carnage for January of 2025. I'm going to give you the first couple of days of the year off before turning your January Janu scary on the 3rd when I send you out to see The Damned. Playing in limited but accessible to most theatrical release, 2025's first horror flick chronicles the inhabitants of a 19th century coastal Icelandic village who witness a shipwreck in the distance. Though they have the capability to save the passengers, it would be at great risk immediately, but also long-term due to lack of supplies. They decide what they decide and are burdened with the repercussions of said decision thereafter. I did watch the trailer to this movie, and I did not think that it gave too much away, so I would advise checking that out. I am hopefully optimistic about it, but whether good or bad, make sure that you select a theater that's also running your number 2 flick, a gold standard in the serial killer subgenre, Seven. So for its 30th anniversary, which actually isn't until September, Seven is not only being re-released to theaters, but for the first time ever, it's going to be in a newly remastered, made-for IMAX version. I do feel that Seven is up there with Silence of the Lambs as one of the most horror-leaning films that assholes will insist is a psychological thriller. It is intended to scare you. It is a horror movie. Moreover, this is an incredibly important film. It's the first time that showed what David Fincher was really capable of when given creative control, and it showed that both Brad Pitt and Gwyneth Paltrow were more than just pretty people. They don't become the actors or the director that they are with the level of prestige that they have without this step. It's only playing for 3 days, so go find out what's in the box on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th of January. If you are planning on the 4th as your day, however, be sure to allot yourself some time to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the New York City premiere of The Mutilator. This is a low B, high C tier slasher about a group of college kids that are stalked on an island while they're on their fall break. And I know New York City premiere sounds kind of weird. I threw it in there because the actual premiere was in Raleigh, North Carolina in January 6th of '84. It only played there and in Newport News, Virginia for the first year. The January 4th, 1985 New York City debut marked a level of legitimacy because it was the first major market that The Mutilator hit, and for the first time it solidified that this movie would be seen by more people than just locals. We likely wouldn't be talking about it if that had not happened. Happy anniversary. Then you're gonna get a good 9-day break to rest up, because you're going to need it for the 30th anniversary of the first Friday the 13th of 1995, which marked the release of Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. Demon Knight has a star-studded cast of character actors including William Sadler, Billy Zane, Thomas Hayden Church, Dick Miller, and an actress whose name I will be keeping out of my fucking mouth. It tells a rather simple premise of mankind, good being inside, evil outside. Who's gonna succumb to temptation first? But it's the lore and the comedy and the incredible practical effects that make this movie not only as fun, but also as memorable as it is. This movie was supposed to start a long string of Tales from the Crypt theatrical features, but this movie underperforms because people fucking suck. It's probably in my top 10 of 90s horror, maybe even my top 5, and it's one that I've spent countless hours brainstorming a sequel to, because there really should be one someday. So pausing the list, not required watching, but I am going to make mention of these bonus flicks. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare has a 3-day theatrical run from the 13th through the 15th, do as you will, and German film The Calendar Killer, which was based on the much-lauded German novel Walk Me Home, drops to Prime on the 16th. Returning to our list, however, coming to Max on the 16th, our 5th flick, the Turner Classic Movies documentary Becoming Hitchcock: The Legacy of Blackmail. So Blackmail was an early Hitchcock film debuting in 1929. It is considered the first British talkie, but it is unique in that it also has a fully silent version. This documentary compares and contrasts both versions and examines the process of having to both show and tell and how that influenced the aesthetic of Hitchcock's later work. It's only 72 minutes, so you'll have plenty of time the next day, January 17th, to catch Leigh Whannell's take on The Wolfman. This retelling of the classic Universal monster story of a man who can turn into a wolf is their umpteenth attempt at modernizing this story, but the first time that I have faith in what they're doing with it. That comes down to Leigh Whannell being at the helm. What he did with his last outing for Universal, 2020's The Invisible Man, was a masterstroke in how these classic stories can still resonate with modern audiences. Fuck you, Tom Cruise. Get out, support it. If you like it, vocalize it. After you've done your due diligence, kick back on the 18th, celebrate the 40th anniversary of the ridiculous but fun horror comedy, Ghoulies. Often misconstrued as a Gremlins ripoff, this was actually pitched to Charles Band in 1982 and was in production at the same time as Gremlins. I do see the similarities, but it's just not factual. And to be frank, this isn't nearly as good. It's fun, but they had nothing to be afraid of. And Ghoulies does have its own place. It was relatively successful and, by my count, marks the first time that Charles Band worked with small things. That carried on throughout his entire career. It's still going on to this day. Dude ended up doing Puppet Master and Doll Man, Demonic Toys, Bad Channels, Blood Dolls, and so many more. We may not have gotten the Ginger Dead Man without this. But seriously though, Ghoulies was a huge success for Charles Band, and it's maybe not the entire foundation that Full Moon Entertainment was based on, but it's absolutely one of the cornerstones. So we're going to slash forward a few days, and we're hitting a week of Sundance world premiere anniversaries. First up, on the 21st, we've got the 25th anniversary of Mary Harron's neo-classic, American Psycho. I cannot believe that this is old enough to call a classic. This 1980s set indictment of culture and greed and vanity feels just as relevant and just as new a quarter century after it blazed the path that it did. Christian Bale defined yuppie scum Patrick Bateman better than anybody else ever could have. I will trust that there is a reason that Luca Guadagnino is choosing to remake this. Suspiria was an interesting vision, and Bones and All is brilliant and beautiful. But do we really need another American Psycho? I don't know. But dude doesn't really feel like the type to go for a cash grab. All I'm saying, anybody who's playing Patrick Bateman next has a pretty big herb mint facial mask to fill. Alright, pausing the list again just for a couple more bonus flicks because I do want you aware of this. A24 is bringing Talk to Me back to theaters in IMAX for like the third time in the past 6 months. That's going to be on January 22nd. Also, if you choose to, go see David Howard Thornton as a murderous Mickey Mouse in Screamboat on the 24th. I will make time for it if I can, but my theatrical agenda for that day will be spent watching our 9th Steven Soderbergh's new film, Presence. There's been very little released about this film other than it stars Lucy Liu and Julia Fox and looks to be some kind of haunted house flick. I'm not always a fan of Soderbergh. I especially thought his last and only horror film, Unsane, was gimmicky and contrived. But I do have hope for this. I am looking forward to seeing what it is. Completing the trifecta of the 24th will be to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the first Sundance screening of Wolf Creek. This mean, dirty cat and mouse thriller, Australia's contribution to the torture porn splat pack of the 2000s, and their answer to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, made John Jarrett's Mick Taylor a new horror icon. And one real mean motherfucker. I will be honest with you, Wolf Creek is not my favorite. It never has been, but I did see it opening night in theaters, and I still clearly remember the gasps and the horror at the garage scene. At least give it a chance. If you're with it, it's got a sequel, and it's got 2 seasons of a television series. Happy hunting. Our final entry to our Sundance party, and apropos timing, On the 27th, you get to celebrate the 10th anniversary of our 11th film, Robert Eggers' feature film debut, The Witch, or The Vavitch if you prefer. Yes, it's already been a decade. Anya Taylor-Joy is an A-list star now. That all started here. And Eggers himself is getting Oscar talk for Nosferatu. See where he started off with this story that doesn't only explore reactions and assumptions of witchcraft in the 1630s New England. If you didn't know, large portions of this script are based off of actual text from the time period. And if history is in your bag of tricks, boy do I got one for you. The 29th brings about the 70th anniversary of one of the most important horror films ever made, the French classic Diabolique. Co-written and directed by auteur Henri-Georges Clouzot, Diabolique plays with a very noir storyline wherein the wife and the mistress of a man conspire to murder him. Now, this film is not only handled with darker tone and more realism than was common in those days, there is a recurring visual of a corpse that is simple but absolutely grotesque. Its visceral nature makes it more disturbing than many things that you'll see in modern horror today. But more than that, Diabolique is credited as the first film to do a twist ending the way that we understand it today. If you thought something like that was invented by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, it absolutely wasn't. But you knew that. But if you thought it was Psycho, this came out 5 years prior to Psycho. And get this, Hitchcock wanted to direct Diabolique. Robert Bloch, the author of Psycho, not only acknowledged that his favorite horror movie was Diabolique, he also confirmed its influence on Psycho. So do your backtracking. We don't get to Scream without Halloween. We don't get to Halloween without Black Christmas. We don't get to Black Christmas without Psycho, and we don't get to Psycho without Diabolique. Listen, I view 1968's Night of the Living Dead as the turning point from classic to modern horror. And truth, there are very few movies prior to Night of the Living Dead that I would outwardly recommend that everybody see. And this is one of the very few that I would. Not only due to influence, but because this is an incredible film. Just stay away from the Sharon Stone remake. And finally, number 13 on the 31st, I want you to watch Dario Argento's Phenomena. Phenomena. Creepers. It was called Creepers in the United States. Okay, follow me on this. This is an Italian film about an American girl at a Swiss boarding school who discovers that she has psychic powers that she can use to communicate with insects to track a serial killer. I am not bullshitting you. This is a real thing. Man, I wish that you could still get away with some bullshit like that. I am not huge on Argento, but I do like and do own this movie. We children of the 80s that had this movie at our local video store absolutely have this image burned into our brain. And if she looks familiar, that's a 14-year-old Jennifer Connelly who's in her first starring role the year before she starred in Labyrinth. Give it a shot or pay it its dues. The 31st marks its 40th anniversary. Phenomena. That's gonna do it for today, creeps. Do all these things. Let me know which of these you'll be watching in January and what I missed right over here. And as always, this is all just a matter of opinion. See them yourself, make your own decisions, remain critical, support horror.